It was a Saturday night, and my friends and I were buzzing with excitement. We had decided to hit up our favorite diner. You know, the one with the best milkshakes in town. We were all hyped up, chatting and laughing about everything and nothing at all. I was so caught up in the moment that I lost track of time, totally lost in the joy of being with friends. And then it hit me. I glanced at my watch and felt a wave of panic wash over me. It was way past the time I was supposed to be home. My dad had this strict rule: I had to be home by 9 p.m. If I wasn't, I knew I'd hear it from both him and my stepmom. So there I was, scrambling to get back home, the excitement from earlier replaced with a knot of dread in my stomach. As I rushed back, I kept replaying my dad's face in my mind. Disappointed, maybe even angry. I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was about to get a lecture. When I finally got to the front door, my heart was racing. I opened it to find my stepmom standing there, arms crossed, her expression serious. "It's 10 p.m., Harry," she said firmly. Her voice had that tone that sent shivers down my spine. I knew she was mad, and all the joy from earlier evaporated in an instant. I'm sorry," I blurted out, hoping to ease the tension. "We lost track of time at dinner." I tried to explain, but I could see she wasn't having any of it. I felt that familiar rush of regret, wishing I had been more responsible. After all, I was just having fun, right? But deep down, I knew I should have kept an eye on the clock. To my surprise, instead of launching into a lecture, she walked over and hugged me tightly. "It's okay," she said softly. "Just know that you're safe and home." At that moment, my fears started to melt away. It felt good to be embraced like that, and it reminded me that, even though she was my stepmother, how odd she was. But then her expression shifted slightly. "You still need to be punished, though," she said, and I felt a chill run down my spine again. Punished? I couldn't wrap my head around why she'd want to punish me after such a warm moment. But everything is fine now, I thought to myself. I was confused and a little scared. I took a deep breath and decided to face whatever was coming. "I'll do anything," I said, hoping to show her I was willing to own up to my mistake. "This is part of the lesson." She grinned slyly, which made my heart race faster. "Do you want me to tell your dad what you did?" At that moment, my stomach dropped. The thought of my dad being disappointed in me was worse than any punishment she could come up with. I had to keep this from him. "No, please don't tell him," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. "I'll accept any punishment you think is fair." Facing my fears felt like a lesson in itself, but I had no idea what was about to unfold. My stepmom smiled, clearly enjoying the situation. She grabbed my hand and led me to the couch. "I want to help you calm down," she said in a gentle voice. "Let's do something you'll never regret." I don't know what she meant by that, and a mix of excitement and confusion bubbled inside me. What is she planning? I wondered as we sat down. Was this really a punishment? The tension hung in the air, and I felt my cheeks flush as I thought about what she could possibly have in mind. And then she engaged with me in an act I never could have thought I would be doing with my stepmother, of all people. "How did you like your punishment?" she asked with a playful smirk, and my face went bright red. I was taken aback and didn't know how to respond. Part of me felt ashamed, but another was strangely intrigued. "You can always get in trouble for being late if you want to," she added, her smile growing wider. I was caught off guard by her words. I started to wonder if being late had somehow opened up a door to a secret I didn't know existed. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation. It felt like we had shared a secret that nobody else knew. I tossed and turned, dealing with the mix of emotions swirling in my mind. Fear, excitement, and a hint of rebellion. Do I really want to keep coming home late just for this? I thought. It was hard to understand what had just happened. The idea of a secret between my stepmom and me made my heart race. What did it mean? Was I crossing a line, or was this a part of growing up? The thrill of it all was intoxicating, but I also felt a pang of guilt. I knew I was supposed to follow the rules, and Here I was, fantasizing about the excitement that came from being late. This internal conflict kept me awake at night. The excitement kept creeping back in, but this time, it was for a different reason altogether. I was flying high after receiving the punishments from my stepmom, and with that, I would ignore all the consequences of my actions. I could get lost in that feeling of utter bliss for hours on end, without a care in the world. But dread is an inescapable feeling, and it loomed over me. Lurking in the same shadows the high-flying compliments of my friends were coming from. It came, however, not with the encouragement of quite literally losing my head, but rather quite the opposite. My head was most certainly intact, for I had almost grasped control of my smarting senses, concealing my wild, delirious, and ecstatic self more better than earlier. I couldn't escape the flashbacks of that particular night, envisioning every single detail in the series, as if it were looking at a picture of a composition of stories knitted together in a moving image. What was that? Was that how it was meant to be about punishments, or were there deeper details that I knew nothing of? I was in some inexplicable in-between, and my thoughts were starting to spiral out of my control. What if my friends knew of this entire affair? Would they not consider me otherwise? My mind twisted itself in that direction and began to ache. And then there was a dread associated with my father finding out about the incident. It was like bearing the weight of a huge burden where the truth was involved, and frankly, I wasn't sure if I could bear it. Yet there was also that strange sense of exhilaration derived from this strange experience shared with my stepmom, which also irritated me. We had, on some level, breached a limit, and it made me curious as to what lies ahead. Weeks came and weeks went, and there were more of those moments than I cared to remember. It was a feeling that needed to be repressed, that called for normalcy each time my stepmother came around, even though that harmony never really existed. In as much as I would try to distance myself from her, at times her eyes would meet mine, and a smile would rest on her lips as if we were both sharing a comical joke that no one else had access to. It was so strange how what began as a few innocent nights had escalated into this weird understanding between us. I didn't know whether that was dangerous or not, but it was thrilling, for sure. Self-exploration in which I hid behind the curtain of rebellion started becoming a cause of concern in me, more so in the recent past. These thoughts came floating every time I thought of stretching the already too late curfew line. The beating of my heart would quicken in fear, but so would the excitement. It was so tempting what we were doing, so I just could not let it go so easily. And then it occurred, yet again. It was a simple night of fun with friends outside, and I just lost the idea of time and the enjoyment. I could feel that familiar mix of dread and exhilaration creeping up on me. When I went home, my stepmother was waiting as usual, and she had the same sly smile on her face, and I knew what was coming now. We were going to the couch again, and she would punish me, and I was ready for it.